House of the Dragon Episode 5 trailer explained. With Episode 4 of the show just being released and it focusing on the direction in which the future of the Targaryen line is going to go, a trailer for Episode 5 was just released, and it looks like it's going to be explosive and bear a similar resemblance to a certain episode in Game of Thrones. So with that, I thought I'd break down the trailer and explain all that there is to take away from it, along with giving my theories and predictions to what I think is going to happen next. So let's get into it. Here is House of the Dragon Episode 5 trailer explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. So it looks like next week is going to be the final time that we see Millie Alcock and Emily Carey as Rhaenyra Targaryen and Alicent Hightower, which is a shame as I feel we've really grown to connect with their embodiments of the two characters. And it also looks as though it could be the last time that we see King Viserys, which again is also a shame as Paddy Considine has done a great job in the role and delivered a really convincing performance. This is the final episode before the time jump is set to occur, and it looks as though a lot is going to unfold. Episode 5 of the show is titled We Light the Way, which is named directly after the words of House Hightower, so it seems as though the impact of both Otto and Alicent could reach its peak in this episode. The trailer started with the line being spoken by Viserys, which was, "I wish to propose a marriage to my daughter and heir," as we had a shot of Viserys getting off of a ship after reaching land at what looked like Driftmark. So it seems as though the king is going to travel to Driftmark to reach Corlys rather than request him to travel to King's Landing. This is going to be following on from the agreement that Viserys and Rhaenyra came to at the end of episode 4, where we saw that she agreed to marry Laenor Velaryon. In the background of the shot, we also had Rhaenyra looking as though she just got off the ship as well. Both the king and princess will be there. From here, it looked as though we were straight into the wedding celebrations, which look as though they're going to be taking place in front of the Iron Throne. We saw a clip of ships looking as though they were sailing, and I would imagine they're sailing towards King's Landing for the wedding, as we saw the Velaryon sigil on the ship. Viserys uttered the line, "I hope to herald in a second age of dragons," as we then had two of the dragons from the show flying over the sea. We then had a shot of Rhaenyra overlooking land or sea depending where she was. She's likely thinking about how much she doesn't actually want to do this. We know from the start that Rhaenyra has been adamant that she wanted to live a life in solitude, and to not marry for the sake of strengthening the house or to produce heirs. This has been ingrained within the character's roots since episode 1, so her deciding to marry is a big change for her and goes against what she believes in. Following this, we had Rhaenys saying to Corlys Velaryon, her husband, that Rhaenyra's succession will be challenged. In episode 2 of the show, we saw Rhaenys mention to Rhaenyra that men would rather take a torch to the realm than have a woman sit upon the Iron Throne. And by us seeing Rhaenyra out in public in episode 4 of the show, and it's showing us the discomfort and unrest, the negative perception that the people have around her being queen, it looks like exactly that is going to happen. One would imagine that representatives from most houses are going to be invited to the wedding, and it's here where it looked as though Jason Lannister walked in, and in true Lannister style, it looks as though all hell is going to break loose, like a Red Wedding 2.0. This could be the start of what we see of the rivalry as the Greens and the Blacks, which will likely come into effect in episode 6 onwards. We heard the words, "Knives will come out," being spoken by Rhaenys as we had a shot of Sir Criston Cole about to pull out his sword. This was just before we got a clip of an individual on the floor looking as though they were being beaten. From my understanding and at first glance, it looked as though it could be Sir Joffrey Lonmouth. Joffrey is a character that was involved intimately with Laenor Velaryon. Laenor is said to prefer the company of men to women, and Joffrey is an individual who he'd been close with, so we could see something occur or be revealed about that during the wedding, which could add to the element of conflict. We then had the visual of what looked like somebody in red, most likely a Lannister, throwing Laenor Velaryon onto the table, along with general uproar and an outbreak of violence in the room, with it also looking like Sir Criston Cole attacking an individual. He could be acting out and protecting the princess at this point. As he's slightly lower, we saw in a clip later on in the trailer that the princess was on the floor, so somebody could have been going after her and he could have stopped them. We then had Alicent looking forward in a tense way, which could be following on from the events or maybe something that Otto Hightower had said to her. And then we also had Corlys Velaryon stepping off from where he was seated. I think this is likely from when the king goes to meet him very early on in the episode to propose the marriage. We're then followed by Daemon with his hood up, in disguise, just like we saw him in episode 4 of the show, trying not to be noticed and covering the white hair. It looks as though him being banished has quite literally left him on his own, and with Corlys uniting with the king on the marriage of their 2 children, he'll most likely not be siding with Daemon anymore, especially considering the king wants nothing to do with him. It looked as though he was waiting for an individual on a horse to come riding past. As we saw later on in the trailer, he pushed the individual off, most likely to take the horse so he's able to travel further and faster. The line, "The king will die," was uttered by Otto Hightower, where we had a shot of the king looking like he was in agony with people tending to him. It looked as though what once were marks have now spread all over his arm. It looks as though it could be grayscale, but it's one that I think will need to be confirmed in the next episode. We also saw another shot of it looking as though he was falling down and collapsing later on in the trailer, with Alicent looking over. We then heard if Rhaenyra succeeds him, then war will follow. Prepare Aegon to rule. This was being spoken from Otto to Alicent, so it looks as though he's still able to carry out his plan despite the fact that he was removed as Hand of the King. Alicent most likely feels as though she's a pawn in the game that her father was playing, and you could see the distress that was on her face following what he said. The unrest amongst the people, most likely matched with the rumours and gossip about Rhaenyra, is what could spark the ignition for everything to erupt at the wedding. It looks as though all main parties make it out alive. However, for how long? That's the question. It seems as though the king is going to die, and the true divide of the house is splitting into the Greens and the Blacks, which will take sides during the civil war as soon to be formed, backing either Aegon or Rhaenyra. The eruption of the wedding doesn't appear to happen in the books, so it seems as though it's something that's been made and dramatized for the intention of the TV show, so it'll be interesting to see exactly how it pans out. The future of Rhaenyra and who will be leading House Targaryen is unknown, but an all-out war is brewing, and a significant time jump is something that I imagine is only going to allow the depth of the story, the weight of the situation, and the immenseness of the battle to build. I can't wait for next week's episode to bid farewell to some of the actors that have helped make this first half of the show pure perfection. So, there you have it, House of the Dragon Episode 5 Trailer Explained. If you want to see more videos on House of the Dragon, such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What do you think is going to happen next? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.